Good question. So I always say the same thing. I just say, no, I completely understand. It sounds like you're referring to maybe like a renter moving into your house or something like that, which is not what I do. We're buying the home. So let's say whether my family that I procure and put in one of my homes performs or not, that wouldn't affect you because you're going to continue making your payments and you're going to be cashed out on or before whatever timeline we agreed anyway. So I want to just make sure you feel good about that. We wouldn't be handing your home back destroyed. That's just not what we do.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Real Estate Junkies Coast to Coast. I'm your co-host, Rusty Ham, on the West Coast. With me is Steve Mernick on the East Coast. Say hi.
Good morning, Mr. Russell. That's good. It's good afternoon for me almost, but good to see you, bud.
Yeah, I got to use the time change there. In today's episode, again, every episode, we're going to start with a warm-up, which is we focus on the three pillars of real estate investing. And the three pillars, quite honestly, and you can agree with me, Steve, it doesn't have to deal with real estate investing, right? It can be with anything. So the three pillars, again, is our mindset, skill set, and systems. And you can use those three pillars in any part of business. It doesn't have to be real estate. We're going to focus today on the mindset, skill set, and systems. So the first question, and then then we have our game plan, which is we're going to get more in depth in the front of a lease purchase. And then we're going to have a cool down, which we're going to revisit our Chairman's Club meeting that we had in Rhode Island a couple of weeks ago, right? Steve, let me look at my notes here. For mindset, we have students that come in for various reasons. And so maybe you can touch upon this. They've done the wholesaling, they've done the fix and flips, they've done the BRRRR, and now they're coming in our community. So why are some of these students, why creative financing? Just right off the bat.
All right. So I can give you why I was attracted to it, and then I can give you some ideas of some of our students. So why I was attracted to it at the time was being a W-2 worker and not financially super strong, but at the same time, like I didn't have a bunch in my savings to go ahead and be utilizing for a flip, or I didn't even know how to raise private money. I was just like, how do I get into some kind of real estate where I can get traction without using my own credit, using my own money? And how can I replicate that? If I don't have money, how do I go ahead? I can't even buy another house until I sell the one that I flip if I had money.
Right.
So I was trying to find a way to get into this thing and also do it part-time. And that was I say attraction. And also too, like in the world of wholesaling and fixing and flipping, not everybody wants a 60% of the value of their home cash sale. And it didn't really feel exciting to me to have to constantly have these conversations where people feel like I'm like sticking the knife in them and twisting it. That didn't really feel good. And with creative real estate, which time is our currency, right? I can be able to go ahead and be able to offer people full price for their homes if they have time on their hands, of course, if it's a fit for them. So I think that is probably an across the board with me. And I think with some of the students, I don't know if Russell, you had a similar insight on that.
Yeah. For me, and again, for a lot of the students, it's, when you do a fix and flip, you got to use other people's money. So you're going to use other people's money, OPM, sorry. And you guys know with the '08 crash, when you had other people's money and you're relying on that, you're leveraging yourself, there's danger, right? We got really screwed during the '08 crash because they were out leveraged. Our mentor, Chris Fontaine, will talk about that often. So what attracted me, and again, I was a teacher, high school coach. I didn't have this discretionary money where I could start buying homes. And so this was attracted to me, right? It's no money down. You're agreeing on a contract with the seller and you're trying to find buyers. And that was attractive. And then I love what you said about how it made you feel by coming in and trying to lowball somebody. That doesn't feel good to me either. Right. You're negotiating. I'm not a big fan of negotiating. What I want to do is say, hey, seller, what do you want? And they give me a price and they say, okay, that's super simple. And that felt good to me. And I appreciate you said that. That's not who we are. We're not coming in trying to lowball you and cut you at the knees. So
no one likes
No, nobody likes that. Some people, they like that negotiating part, right? They want to come in and try to get the instant equity, right? We're not like that. The way we buy, again, full price, sellers just need to wait. So we can talk a little bit more about that later. Cool. So the second pillar is the skill set. So I got this phone call. I was talking to a seller the other day, and we don't talk about the buyers normally when we're talking to sellers because they don't necessarily need to know what we're going to do on the other side. However, they say, okay, what are you going to do with the property? And I said, I'm not going to live in it. I'm going to find these buyers that are just outside of financing, blah, blah, blah. We can get into the buyer side in future episodes, but they said, what if they trash the place?
Mhm.
What would your response? Again, this is skill set. So we're pivoting now to more of a scripting, right? So
Mhm.
what would you say to a seller that says, oh, what if they trash the place?
Yeah, good question. So I always say the same thing. I just say, no, I completely understand. It sounds like you're referring to maybe like a renter moving into your house or something like that, which is not what I do. We're buying the home. So let's say whether my family that I procure and put in one of my homes performs or not, that wouldn't affect you because you're going to continue making your payments and you're going to be cashed out on or before whatever timeline we agreed anyway. So I want to just make sure you feel good about that. We wouldn't be handing your home back destroyed. That's just not what we do.
Right. Yeah. And when we tell the seller too, this is a hands off deal for you. So once we agree and we take over, your hands are, you're out of the picture, right? You,
Mhm.
like you said, that if the buyer doesn't perform, we're going to continue to make those payments on your behalf. You won't even know that the buyer doesn't perform. So,
Mhm.
um, great. I appreciate that. Thank you, Steve, on that.
Of course.
And then the third part of our genius model is the systems. So touch upon some of the systems that we have in our community, and then we can move on to our game plan.
Yeah, so there's three main systems that we all use, which is incredibly powerful when you put them together. So the first one I'll think of is the most important, right? It's a lead generation software. We use My Plus Leads. My Plus Leads gives us daily leads for a handful of sources. The main ones in our community that we use is FISBOs, which is for sale by owners, expired cancel withdrawns. Those are typically grouped together, but people who had realtors and for whatever reason the realtor wasn't able to sell and their contract expired, they withdrew the listing from the actual realtor. Maybe they're going to put it back on in a couple months, or canceled is usually that they're not happy at all with them and they wanted to move away from them. So
Right.
lead generation software, if you don't have leads, you don't have deals. So
Correct.
that's the number one. Second one will be our CRM. We use REI Black Book in the community.
Hmm.
And what basically the CRM does is it is a lead managing software, right? So your leads get imported into the CRM. You can make dials right out of it. And then after you speak with people, leave voicemails, then we have the customized automations that we use to continue to follow up with them over time. So you're not like trying to utilize your brain to remember the 10,000 people that
Right.
you've talked to in the last, year. And it puts them in the right buckets, right? We have these great created auto statuses in our automations where you talk to someone and they don't answer. You can literally click a button, put them in some status that then puts the wheels into motion between sending you tasks by a certain date to call them or sending text messages in the future with you if they're in consent of that, of course. And it's
Right.
just a way for you to stay organized. And then the last one that we use, which it's funny. So Slack is a communication platform. It's almost just how to explain it would be, and I wouldn't say like a social media. It's just a platform for only us to communicate with specified channels where we communicate for specific reasons, whether they're call critiques and they're all housed in one station. You can direct message people for obviously having direct communication. Maybe it's about deals that are going on and how we can progress them with our coach. So we use that for numerous reasons. It could be announcements to the community. It could be anything. So that's very important as well. And I guess the last one, which everybody knows of, but it's funny, we use obviously Zoom like the majority of people in the world use. I
Right.
remember when right before I came into the community, Slack wasn't a thing and neither was Zoom. So the way that everyone's communicating, first off, which I don't even know about the communicating with because they didn't have Slack, but I do know when it came to Zoom, they were just doing group phone calls, meaning like 30 people would call in on a conference call and
Yep.
they do the way that we're doing it now, which is so crazy to think about. But Zoom has made it where we can do our group and one-to-one calls and just have it so personalized. Zoom's amazing. I wish I knew how great Zoom was going to be before COVID. I would have bought a million stocks in it, but you
Exactly.
obviously can't know the future.
Yeah. And then just to touch on the Zoom again, we do weekly calls with a very maybe two, three, four people in the group. And then I have office hours where I just open up to the community, where I click on Zoom and people come in and we chat about scripting, or we chat about other things. And then we have our weekly mastermind, which is phenomenal. And people just come in with questions and we answer those questions and get them on the right track.
Love.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Again, those are our three, the genius model three. It is mindset, skill set, and systems. We really focus on those three because that's how we feel that's how the associates in the community will get better and be more successful.
Mhm.
Let's pivot to, again, I think in the first episode, we talked about one of our game plans, which is a lease purchase. We talked about our avatar, who would want to do a lease purchase. And you talked about it was more military. Mine was more high equity.
Mhm.
In my area, again, we do this all across the country. So in your area, it depends, right? Once you start talking to sellers, you'll find your avatar, right? And it's going to come with time. You're not going to find your avatar on your first call.
Mhm.
Right? So it took me, I would say probably a year for me to figure out, okay, mine is mostly free and clear homes or high equity because I'm Southern California. A lot of the houses are second homes to people. You figured out it was military and that was your focus at the time.
Mhm.
Walk us through. So let's say hypothetically, one of our avatars we call them and they're like, yeah, I'm open to the idea. Can you explain or the kind of the process of a lease purchase with
Yeah.
the seller, the beginning part?
Yeah, we were just talking about this a couple minutes before we started the podcast. I created this video on my website a while back. I had a little bit of hair at the time, Russell,
Yeah.
and basically the whole point of the video was to be able to explain to anybody that I potentially would do business with what it would look like as a timeline of working together, starting all the way to the original call. So just to give you an idea what that looks like, Russell and I identify properties that we're interested in, and then we give those people a call. So once we have that conversation, we're getting to know each other and we're going over what it is that like, what's your motivation? Where are you going? When do you need to be there by? And just getting a feeling for that, how much you want it for the house. And then we start to explore some creative avenues in which we could buy the house if it's a fit for you, of course. And then we just answer whatever it is questions that you have from there. Now, let's say that we're on the same page and this sounds like this could be a fit for you. The next step would be for me to book a time to go ahead and come out to your house, get a feel for your home, get a better feeling for you. And then we usually sit down at the table and we start designing this together, right? That's the big piece here. We're not wholesalers and flippers that we've got to make an offer that works for us based off of a formula. That's not how it works. We can pay your price if you give us the timeline that we need.
Yep.
Okay. So then we'll design all that together, find out based on your most recent mortgage statement, how much equity that you have in the house, how much monthly debt that we're paying on your behalf, etc. And then after that, based off of constructing this offer together, if it is a fit, the offer, then we would go to, say, an agreement stage where we would plug the exact information that we agreed to together into the agreement. If you had any questions about an agreement, I'd have another call with you to answer any questions about that. And then from there, we would sign and we would start that marketing period for us to procure a third party buyer that we would be looking to put in the home because we don't live in the homes ourselves. We obviously sell them. For us, it's usually self employed families who are just outside of financeability.
Mhm.
And then once we put a buyer into the home, 30 days after that, that's when we start maintaining the mortgage payments on your behalf. That's when that timeline that we agreed upon, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, whatever it is for you, kicks in. And we have, say we agreed upon, let's say 60 months, meaning 5 years. We have 5 years at a max or less to cash you out. Typically it's less, right? But that's basically the timeline. And then at the very end of that timeline, whether we cash out in 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, it ends with a traditional sale. Okay. And what that means is that equity piece that we locked in the beginning, meaning the difference between the asking price and what you owe the bank, we locked that in the beginning. That's when you get cashed out for that full amount at the end of the sale.
Yep. Yeah. And the way I like to describe it to sellers is, hey, we're going to agree on this equity piece. Hypothetically, let's say you agree on 500, you owe 300, there's $200,000 in that equity, correct? We're going to agree on that equity piece. And then on or before, like Steve said, it could be 2, it could be 3 within that 5-year period, we're going to cash you out. the tenant buyer that we find is going to get a traditional loan. Again, he says it's going to turn into a traditional sale. They're going to get a loan. What we're going to do when that closes is we're going to cut you a check for $200,000, and then
Mhm.
we're going to pay off the remaining balance of your loan. Right
Yep.
now, talk about the title and the mortgage. A lot of the sellers are like, "Am I still on title? Or do I still?" Talk about that kind of that piece of the puzzle there.
Yeah. So one of the positives of a lease purchase being that the title, the mortgage stays in your name. What's nice is that you still be able to claim all the tax benefits of ownership, right? You can claim your interest and you can depreciate your home until we cash you out. We're maintaining the payments on your behalf. So you're not paying the mortgage. We're upkeep and taking care of maintaining the home. So you don't have to, but you still have the tax benefits until we cash you out. And when we cash you out, meaning at the end of that timeline that I just said earlier,
Mhm.
that's when the mortgage, your, like Russell said, that your current mortgage is paid off. You are cashed out, and the title then transfers to the actual family we put in the home up front.
Okay, sweet. That was short and sweet. Kind of again, a 10,000 foot view of what a lease purchase is. That's what the majority of our associates do. And again, there's benefits on both sides, right? The seller can, it's hands off. They can get away from whatever situation they're in with that house. They couldn't sell it for whatever reason. That's why someone would do that. Again, a lease purchase, this is who it's not for. It's not for somebody who wants to sell their house, get all the money from that home and go purchase another one, free and clear or whatever. These are for people that they want to maximize the amount of money that they have in the home. They've worked hard for it, making those payments over time. So they want to capture all that equity. They don't want to give it away to a realtor or commissions and fees and transfer, all that kind of stuff. So they don't want to give it away, and they have time. So they want to maximize. Plus, they have time in order to receive that cash. So those are the sellers that we primarily work with and buy from.
Let me
But
just let me
yeah,
just put in
yeah.
real quick. What's interesting, this kind of stuff happens all the time, and maybe you don't realize because it doesn't happen to you, but some people will buy a house, right? And then whether it's military or just a job or some kind of opportunity pops up, in under a year that you've owned the home, right? You haven't knocked any of the equity down, depending on how much of a down payment you put down. Like for you to sell your home with a realtor, sometimes you got to come out of pocket, right? It's a
Sure.
brand new loan and it's basically all debt, right? So depending on the price of your home and depending on that commission amount, the commission sometimes exceed your equity. And
Mhm.
then you have closing costs. So people, they want to be able to salvage their equity without, imagine having to come to the closing table with 15 grand just to sell your house. That doesn't happen to many people, but it does happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, make sure you bring your paycheck or bring your checkbook because
Yeah.
you're going to come out of pocket on this one.
No good.
And then another piece, and it just triggered me, another piece you were talking about maintaining their payments. A lot of the sellers will say, okay, so you're taking over my payments. The mortgage is still in my name. What if I want to go buy another property? I don't need the money,
Mhm.
but what if I want to go buy another property?
Yeah.
Well,
That's a question.
so describe that a little bit. And because some people are like, I won't be able to buy another property if I still have this loan in my name.
Yeah. So remember too, everybody's personal situation is different. We don't know how your credit score is. We don't know what your debt to income is. But here's what we've seen in the past when it comes to that. Because we're a professional company who's maintaining the payments, what ends up happening is depending on the bank that you utilize, they could call it a wash, meaning your debt could be a complete wash because somebody else is making the payment. We've seen them show 75% of it they'll cover and 25% will be counted on your debt. What I've seen the best banks for stuff like this is usually credit unions, smaller banks that are looking for business who will then just wash the debt so it doesn't affect you moving forward. But we always say the same thing, right? Shop around with your banks to see what they will show as debt or income or whatever.
Yeah, because technically it's a lease payment, so you can tell your future lender, "Hey, technically I'm leasing this house," and then you can show that the money that's coming in, money's going out. You can show them that
Yeah.
you're not making those payments, somebody else is. So again, it depends on the lender, like you said. Some will be 75%, some will be 100% right off the bat. It really depends. You just have to shop around, like you said, to find that lender.
Good question.
Um, cool. So that was our game plan at the lease purchase. Let's get into the cool down,
Mm,
right, of our practice, right? We did the warm up, we did some stretches, we did some calisthenics, if you want, if you want to call it. We did the main portion of the practice, right? We got into the game plan and we're getting after it. Now we're going to cool down. Steve and I spent some time in Rhode Island with Nick Sodenberg, and his book is Come Up for Air. And we talked a lot about systems and how to organize your business efficiently so that you can maximize your time, right? He talked a lot about time. I don't know if you remember that, but he was saying, hey, if you do this and this, you're going to take 24 hours off of what you're doing. And so now that leaves that 24 hours for other things that you can do. Touch upon what your takeaway. I have my takeaways, what's going to help me in my business, but I know you were like, your eyes were like big wide open when you start talking about AI and you're like, what the hell? AI is starting to, it's not going away. It's the tidal wave of AI is on its way, or even if it might be here already, but talk a little bit about that. And then I think there's something else you wanted to chat about as far as that. Go ahead.
Yeah, the capabilities of the AI stuff that outside of seeing stuff online and everything, but he kind of got into depth and he actually brought us on some websites to show us the capabilities of some things. Obviously, with any newer technology, I'm sure there's going to be some bugs and changes like anything else. And we're at the beginning stage of investigating. We actually found out while we were there that Zach's been actually investigating this for the last 60 days with AI. I didn't even know that. But like one of the things specifically that blew my mind was the AI virtual assistants who are making cold calls to people.
Yeah.
So based on how you're programming them, like he showed us, I think it was like a 3 or 4 minute cold call from a VA to a seller that was like indistinguishable. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch of work at the front end to program this thing or create the right expectation so it has the right scripting and everything, but I couldn't tell the difference that it wasn't a human being. I was like, what's the potential in the future for having a VA that doesn't need to sleep and can just go and make dials? So that was really interesting. Then he showed us, remember Russell, when he showed us the like you can send emails out to people, of course, where they're doing a video and it's you doing a video. I guess it would be like a video message to your seller after you called them.
Yeah.
Now, the video message is you speaking, but it is a robot. It is not you. It's an AI.
Yeah.
And obviously, again, the training has to go on to make this work, but it understands inflection. It understands tonalities. You literally can't tell the difference that it's not you. So I just started to just think about all of these potential possibilities. And it's scary at the same time, right? It's like, how many people am I talking to that aren't human beings? I have no idea. How many people have already implemented this? I have no idea. But after just like thinking about it for hours, and I just started thinking, how can we incorporate this into selling homes? Meaning, can we somehow utilize AI to find the buyers that we are looking for in volume? And can we utilize AI in a way where when our buyers call in, just that first step, this is where the volume comes, right? It's, hey, is this just a rental? We get 85% of the calls for rent to own is, hey, is this a rental? If we can utilize AI to first off be a call, not a text message, because text message is great and efficient, but also people are going to buy a house. Text message also feels a little scammy. So you have to be careful there, making sure you're having that human response and communication. So if we can use AI to filter through, let's say, very low payoff, just letting this person know this is not a rental, or go to the site if you're still interested in our rent to own program. That's not a fit for everybody. Give us a call back. If you as an individual, as the business owner could plug into that part of the business at that stage, you're going to get so much time back. And it's all about time and efficiency. So I was so blown away by what the possibilities that I haven't even really thought about yet of how we can utilize the past where my brain had the bandwidth for. And then there was a couple other things that I want you to touch on, because this is something that you're really good at in comparison to me. And he was showing us just how to use everyday products like your Google Calendar, that I live by my Google Calendar. If it's not in my Google Calendar, I'm not going to be there. I just won't be there. So the capabilities of Google Calendar that we knew nothing about, we're using like 1% of the capabilities basically. And products like Asana for just like your big group to stay on and doing tasks. So do you want to touch on that, Russell, of that side of it?
Yeah. So let me go to the AI portion of it. I think what you got excited about it was critiquing calls, critique calls, and then you just throw the call into some AI and it spits back the critique, and we don't have to do that anymore.
Yes.
Which is, because I don't know if you guys know, we critique our associates' calls, and it's time's consuming, right? So if we can somehow utilize that, then we can get time back, and then it allows us to do other things as far as coaching. Now, when he talked about the people that are going to be listening to this, were you guys are like, you didn't know how to utilize a Google Calendar. Some of us aren't that tech savvy, right? So I picture myself as tech savvy, but I didn't know how to combine all the calendars, right? So I had 3 different calendars on tabs, and I'll get into tabs in just a second. But I have 3 different calendars as tabs. And so I would go back and forth to each one. Okay, what am I doing today in the business? And what am I doing today for coaching? And I would personal, right? So he's no, you just merge them.
You color code and all that.
You just need one calendar, and then have things be assigned to that calendar, not 3 different calendars. So that was helpful. And then the tabs part, I didn't know you could put tabs into groups, right? Because I used to, and I tell the students that when you're calling, you should take all your tabs off, because you're gonna be you're gonna be distracted. You're gonna make a call, and you're like, oh, Facebook tab's open, I'm gonna go check out some status, whatever. So he was able to show us how we can group those together. So now I have 3 or 4 tabs, but once you click on the tab, it expands to whatever you want to do. So that was helpful. And then Asana, we're starting to do that now. We're probably getting a ton of emails the last couple of days of tasks, things that we need to complete. And that was huge for me, because then I can start using Asana for my business and start creating some tasks for me, create a project. Let's say I want to implement a new CRM, right? Because I'm starting to do like Mojo, and how do I integrate with that with the Black Book? And so that's going to be helpful as far as creating these tasks and then holding me accountable, right? Because before I would just write it down on a piece of paper, and then I'd be searching around for these papers. Okay, what am I supposed to be doing next? But now I'm in control of that, and that's going to save me time. Again, we want to create more time to be able to do other things that are going to generate business for ourselves. So good stuff, Steve. Any parting words? Anything you want to chat about other than real estate?
I'll say this, and I'm learning it every single day. Once you think that you're like at the peak level of organization or peak level of certain skill sets, there is a unlimited world of proof that we can be better, and proof that there are tools to make life easier. And sometimes it takes being around the right people to expose you to things that can make gigantic impacts on your business. Because realistically, depending on how big your business is, whether you're a solopreneur in a group, you can't really outgrow your time, right? What you can do is you could find the right systems to put in place to buy time back, so that you can be spending your time in places that are producing revenue, higher payoff activities. And I think in the beginning stages of businesses, because we have to wear all the hats to understand our businesses so that we can then delegate the right things properly, also be able to train instead of coming in and trying to delegate. How many times have you seen that, Russell? When people come in and, I'm going to get all the systems, I'm going to delegate this, that, and the other. What if those people have questions? Right. Then what are you going to say to them if you've never done it, but you put somebody in that place? So I just think it's great for that whole trajectory of starting a business, learning the business. I've now made my process as efficient as possible, but for me to grow past this and scale, what's the next thing that can help me put myself in a place where I'm the best? I think we focus on where we need to improve a lot, and we don't put enough time into like, where do we perform the best, and how do we put ourselves in a position where we're doing this thing that we're great at more often, like that genius mode. I'm always blown away by how many people out there are smarter than me, and I love it.
Yeah, and you try to find those people, right? You want to surround people that are smarter than you, so that you can grow with them, right? You don't. So a couple things. If you are, we'll put it in the show notes, the link to Nick Sonnenberg's book. It's super helpful if you're, even like you said, if you're a solopreneur, you have 2 or 3 people on your team, or if you have 10 plus, right? It's for everybody. So we'll put that in the show notes. And then one takeaway, my last takeaway is he talked about, because there's people in our community that they want to get a deal and then they'll do this. They want to get that deal first, and then they're gonna scale. Then they're gonna buy it. Then they're gonna. What he was saying is no. If sometimes you got to bite the bullet, and you got to spend that money on the front end in order to generate 10 times that in the future to create. So that was helpful. A lot of the students come in. I got to get that first deal, and then I'll get CRM, or then I'll get a VA. So that was huge for me. Steve, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And if you guys that are listening appreciate the value that we're bringing and the content that we're bringing, please share and comment, do a little comment. We would appreciate that in the future. And Steve, I will see you next week.
My man, appreciate you.
See you, buddy.
Later, dude.